listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 5 of the Guitar Heroes podcast. My name is Lee, and I'm joined here today by Mr. Phil Walker.
Did you just say episode 5? Episode 5 already? It doesn't seem like 2 minutes since we started this.
And Mr. Chris Taylor. Anybody else got deja vu?
A little bit.
We didn't just start recording this and then have a technical issue and have to start the whole thing again. Anyway, but yes, I know what you're saying, Phil. Episode 5 already. How have we got here?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It doesn't actually feel... I mean, it's probably 5 weeks, isn't it? Because we've tried to record one per week to keep it current as well. You know, we don't want to do loads up front because we'd be behind on the times.
Exactly. So for context, what is it? It's the 24th of November 2020 today. And we are still coming to you via Zoom because we're still in the lockdown restrictions here in the UK.
The day after Boris's speech.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah, a little bit.
It was good, wasn't it?
It was. It wasn't all good. Maybe it was or wasn't. I don't know. Do what you want.
I want his slogan on a T-shirt. I loved it when he said, "'Tis the season to be jolly, jolly careful."
Well, I watched the news in bed last night, BBC News, and I watched the papers. I like to see what's happening on the papers because I'm too tight to buy one. So the headlines were almost every headline on the newspaper was that slogan. It's like, oh, blimey. So I picked up on that then.
And the man says, alas, far too much. I've never met anyone in today's age that says, alas, alas, alas. He got it like 4 times into last night's speech. But I guess the general thing to take away from that is some positivity. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and looks like more good news about that vaccine. So I think the likelihood of us returning to our real jobs is looking good.
It'll be really good, I think, because when we do go back to work, probably March, April time, we'll have more vocals on stage, won't we?
What do you mean?
Well, because of the vaccine, we'll have all grown another head, won't we? So that means that we'll have 2 vocals each on stage. 6-part harmonies would be awesome.
I wondered where you were going with that one.
Oh dear.
Oh, Chris, how you doing?
I'm all right, not too bad. Actually, a little under the weather. I've been a little ill the last couple of days. Not COVID related.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
It's not just a little cold. Nothing.
Men do not have little colds. Oh no, you must be really ill, mate. And my sympathies. Do you need an ambulance?
I'll let you know, mate. But yeah, I've got it on speed dial just in case.
Excellent. So glad we're doing this via Zoom then. Oh dear.
Oh dear. Okay,
yes,
so
not too bad at all. So
good.
So
I was listening back to last week's episode actually, and I think we're getting better at the whole allowing Chris his time. I think we're getting better, Phil.
I think he had too much time last time, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I think I mentioned this before, but I'm an observer. Like, so as we're doing this podcast, I'm just watching you guys, thinking this is a great episode. You know, so I'm like, and then I just have to remind myself I'm actually in this. Come on, Chris, speak up.
Okay,
right.
So theme for today.
Yes.
My girlfriend was listening to Desert Island Discs the other day. She just recently discovered it. She'd never listened to it before, and she said, "This is amazing. What a cool concept." And obviously, Desert Island Discs is almost an institute in itself now, a platform of British broadcasting that is known all around the world. And I said, you know what, that is a cracking idea. We could do that. It fits what we're doing really nicely, and we're going to adapt it and make it suitable for our guitar podcast. So I texted you guys a couple of days ago and said, guys, how about this? Let's make this a recurring episode that we come round to, say, once a month. Let's face it, there's so much good guitar music to discuss that we would just be biting off more than we can chew in one episode. So I reckon we're going to focus in on specific decades, okay? So we're the Castaways, and I said to you guys, each of us have to pick 2 tracks that we feel were significant to both our personal development, but also the development of the guitar and of rock and roll. And it makes sense, obviously, this week to start in the 50s, the birth of rock and roll as we know it. 1950, you got Leo Fender coming out with the Fender Esquire, and then there was the Nocaster and the Telecaster. And really, from then, everything changed.
And don't forget, it probably wouldn't have come anywhere to that standard if Les Paul hadn't have produced his log.
Les Paul and his log, yes.
Yeah,
Indeed, yeah, way back. So yeah, these developments, the electric pickup, the solid body guitar, they really took music out of the acoustic world, and I guess before that we were very much based in the sort of blues and R&B, and that's, I think, where everything comes from, certainly guitar related. But yeah,
well, Robert Johnson and his the old slide, on the acoustic guitar, and
selling his soul down at the
Exactly.
crossroads.
Love that
I
story.
feel like I've done that with this podcast, to be honest, but hey ho. Anyway, yes.
The 50s, that is our theme for today. We are all armed with our guitars. I'm sat here holding a Telecaster. Phil, you've got your Gretsch. Chris, you've got your Strat. And hopefully we've all picked a couple of things from the 50s to talk about here. What should we call it? Desert Island Riffs? Desert Island Licks?
I like riffs, Desert Island Riffs.
Desert Island
Riffs, yeah, I like that.
So, but we just thought we'd say as well that none of us know who each other have picked. So if we've all picked the same person, this podcast is going to be over within 2 minutes.
That's a good point. We deliberately didn't tell each other for that reason. I think if we've picked the same song or the same person, then it just confirms that they're clearly worthy of a nomination on Desert Island Discs.
But also it's interesting just to see if one of us have chosen the same song, the story behind why we've chosen that might be a little different and maybe a little interesting. So
yeah.
Okay.
Good point, Chris. So who's going to go first?
Chris?
Yeah,
Okay.
Makes sense. Let's do it. Over to Chris.
okay, well, I'm not going to jump into Chris's corner just yet. I'm going to save that for a little later on.
Oh, so this time you are going to have some foreplay.
This time around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before
last time, no foreplay. It's Chris's corner. We jumped straight in. You ripped
This was
our
prior
clothes
to
off
our
and just-
technical.
Exactly. Chris got into the debate without anything, just bareback and dry. You were straight in there. Nice. I like it. I'll shut up now, Chris.
Sorry, I just need a minute of composure. 1 minute.
Phil, how much Tia Maria have you got in that coffee today?
Oh mate, I've got a double cup today, and I've had 2 of these this morning. So yeah,
I see
you're
I'm not
indigestion.
hungover by lunchtime.
Actually, I see you're not in your dressing gown, so can we assume that everything went okay last week? Listeners of last episode would have heard that Phil was actually going into hospital last week.
I was okay. Yes, it was a horrendous procedure by all accounts. I was out of it, which was nice. And then, to make things just even more interesting, yesterday I had to go in and have a tooth rebuilt.
Oh, what?
With the Tia Maria and all the drugs and anaesthetics and things that I'm having at the minute, I don't even know what planet I'm on. Hey, what day is it?
Oh, sorry, we've interrupted Chris again.
Maybe it should be Chris's corner because that's when we know me and Lee have to shut up.
Yeah. Do you want to play that
Well,
card yet, Chris?
Nah, not yet. No, I'm going to save that
it.
one, I think.
Save it. Okay.
He's going to need to. Okay, Chris, over to you.
Okay, so as I already mentioned, in previous podcasts anyway, I grew up with the likes of The Who, Pink Floyd, guys from an artist from the 60s and 70s onwards. So we didn't really have much of the 50s kind of playing in our house at the time. So my connection to the 50s is a little more indirect, I would say. But the artist I'm going to choose, the first artist of 2, is Buddy Holly, with the song Every Day from 1958 off the album Buddy Holly.
Nice.
Now, the version I have, the first version I heard of this was from James Taylor, the American folk singer-songwriter, and his version was released in '85 off the album That's Why I'm Here. So anyone listening, grab both of those albums up. I'm sure you can find them on YouTube and you can hear a bit of a difference. In fact, I could probably play you the difference between the two. But yeah, I think I love James Taylor, and I love the way he approaches the guitar. Doesn't really think too much about what he's playing. It's just kind of led with his ear. It's very melodic, and so every time I hear this song, actually, it's very nostalgic for me. It takes me back to being a kid and listening to this record on vinyl. So yeah, and I think from there I kind of gone in and listened to a little bit more of Buddy Holly, and kind of appreciated more of his songs and really love it now. I think it's great. His guitar playing is, it's definitely at times pushing boundaries with certain songs. I'm not going to mention any other songs in case you guys have some Buddy Holly on your list.
Okay.
But if maybe I could play a bit of guitar, do you think that would
Yeah.
be okay?
Go for it. Yeah, of course.
So
It's a guitar.
I'm
podcast.
on my
Go for
Strat today, going through a Fender Twin Deluxe or Tweed Deluxe thing. So a 50s model, bit of spring reverb. Here we go.
it. Nice.
I'm just looking at our thing on the Zoom here, and if we're going to get really, really technical, and you know what a pain in the... We should put a bleep there. I can be at times. But I've just noticed you've got your pickup selector in the out of phasey type thing.
Oh, Phil. Nerd points. Nerd points.
This is great because before I sipped on my coffee, I was just about to ask you, Phil, because I know you're really in the know with this. You grew up in the 30s, right? So
I was born in 1918.
So he's done you.
So, what says Sue said the other day? You were born. Where were you born? The 80s? I went no 70s. No, he said I meant 1880s. No, but I was going to say Buddy Holly usually played in the middle position.
The middle position. There we go. I was just about to ask you. So
well, come on, finish that. You've started the nerd point, but finish it. Why would he play the middle position and not the out of phase position?
Well,
there wasn't an out of phase position in the 50s.
Exactly.
Yeah, there wasn't. But it was kind of known that the neck position was like for rhythm. The bridge was lead because it used to take your head off, and the middle position I think was kind of like an in between ground. But I wasn't I never met Buddy Holly back then, so he might have had his own reasons. But I don't know if you've noticed, there's old pictures of Buddy Holly with his Strat, and he's actually got part of the pickup cover missing because I think he used to hit it so hard that it's actually if everyone's going to start diving online now, the Google machines, and if you look at the pickup on some of the old. You'll see part of it missing. Look at the old pictures of Buddy Holly's guitar. Anyway, sorry.
I'm going to do that, but no, that's a good point because the out of phase positions wouldn't have been around at that point, so people only started to get them by sort of just about balance a three-way.
Yeah, it was probably an accident. It was a complete accident, and they went, what's this sound? Yeah,
but it's amazing the sound difference. I mean, like I love the out of phase positions more so than the three main.
Well, that's a Strat, isn't it? It's you put it in an out of phase position. Although it's not technically out of phase, is it? But everyone says it is. But it's the out of phase type position, and it's a Strat straight away, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle position now.
Oh, that's good. Why is that, Chris? No, we've done that.
We're just in a loop here.
So yeah, every day. I mean, it's only based on 3 chords. There is a capo on this. To play authentically, he uses open chords on this. I'm not going to attempt to sing it because I don't really know the words on this song.
Oh, go on.
Do you want me to sing? Every day it's getting closer, going faster than a roller coaster. Love like yours will surely come my way. Something like that.
Yeah.
Well done, Chris.
But the James Taylor version is very interesting. Like, it's nothing like that. Well, the vocal melody is very similar, but he has this. Let me see if I can play it. A key higher as well, I must mention.
Sounds like James Taylor instantly. I love it.
Exactly. This lovely intro, these lovely chords, and then the chords are what's it? Every day. It's getting closer, going faster than a roller coaster. A love like yours would surely come my way. So it sounds very similar to the original vocal melody.
I'm filling up here, Chris.
Chris, that was beautiful.
That was beautiful. I'm filling up.
Thank you very much.
Not with tears. I need a pee.
But
that's I've not actually heard that version. I love James Taylor, so I feel a little bit ashamed of myself that I've not discovered that. I've never heard it. I thought
I mean, this song has been covered by so many guys, like John Denver. Load of famous guys have covered this song, but James Taylor's one is the one I know anyway. This is the first time I heard it. I actually thought it was a James Taylor song. Just anytime he covers anything, it just sounds like him. Like you mentioned, Lee. He's just instantly sounds like James Taylor. You know, he puts his thing onto it, and really made it his own. So I thought for a long time this was James Taylor's song, but as you kind of dig into, I actually did a dissertation on James Taylor for my my degree.
Wow.
And
Most people did it on Steve Vai and Eddie Van Halen, and you chose James Taylor, which I think for the people who did the mark dissertations and I don't know, I never went to college or anything, but I expect it was quite a pleasant change.
Yeah, I think so. I did a performance tied in with this, and this was one of the songs. But yeah, like it's just he has his identity with this song, like any other song he covers. But as you're researching these songs, I kind of then came across Buddy Holly. I always knew of Buddy Holly anyway, as you're kind of learning, studying music, you're aware of these guys, but then really kind of started looking more into his music, and
Well, he's definitely an icon, isn't he? Buddy Holly is up there as one of the first, one of the OGs, the original electric guitar icons. Those
he's a
black
guitar
and white
hero.
images. He is.
He really is. I mean, I know in the show, I used to get some quite aggressive emails and aggressive people at the end of the night when we didn't do Buddy Holly. They would go, "Why Buddy Holly?" And Buddy Holly is a guitar hero. Well, he started it all. I'm going, "Oh, right, okay, yeah." They're absolutely right. Obviously, we can't do everybody in the show, but yeah, they're right. Buddy Holly should and has earned the right to be in there, definitely.
And do you think that he was sort of thrust even further into that iconic stardom because of his tragic death? Obviously. I think there's something to be said for great artists and pioneers who die too young, and it almost then stamps them into the Hall of Fame, because you just sit and wonder, like, what would he have gone on to do? We'll never know.
Well, I suppose there is that element to it, I think. You had artists like Eva Cassidy, who I'm a big fan of, but, she only became famous after, she passed away.
Yeah.
That's thanks to Bob Harris. He was good at discovering people, wasn't he?
Yeah. But, just the list is endless, isn't it? The Kurt Cobains, Jimi Hendrix. But I always just think, what would they have gone on to do if they were around, into their 40s, 50s, 60s? What would Hendrix be like as an old man? What would he be doing? It's, anyway.
Actually, I think Buddy Holly would have, if he hadn't have tragically died earlier, I do think Buddy Holly would have carried on. Look at Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney's still doing it. So,
prime example, when you've got people from that era that are still around today and have put out loads of other great material and are still doing it, it feels almost like it's even more of a loss, I think, because not only have you lost that person, but you've lost all the years that they could have given us. I think about Stevie Ray, and I think, what could have Stevie gone on to do? What music would we be listening to now from Stevie were he still here?
Yeah.
Anyway, tangent there. Sorry, chaps.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, do you know? I feel like that's a good link for me to jump in here.
Go for it, mate.
When you're talking about guitar heroes or guitarists from the 50s that were tragically taken in accidents, my probably one of the biggest reasons I started playing guitar was Mr. Eddie Cochran. And hence the orange Gretsch that I own. I'm a big Eddie Cochran fan, and he actually died in a car accident in his early 20s in England. Yeah, I think Eddie Cochran had so many singles out, and so there's albums galore from Eddie Cochran, and so many songs. And he was, I think he was like 21 when he went.
Wow, I didn't know
incredible.
that.
Yeah, the amount of stuff he had out, before most people's careers even start. And I'm a big Eddie Cochran fan.
Is there a particular song, or can you play us a little bit of Eddie Cochran?
Well, yeah, there's a few. I was just listening to one, and this is probably one of the first things I actually learnt, because I found it quite easy at the time. It's Something Else is the song, and it actually goes. So when you're first playing guitar, it's easy. You can just go. You go, I can play that song now. But it was close enough at the time, And I really love Eddie's solos as well. A lot of his songs are like 3 Steps to Heaven. You got that type of thing in a lot of his songs, and Summertime Blues doesn't have a solo. But when he does do a solo, for example, 20 Flight Rock, he really lets rip. He really does. I'll just quick example. He goes. You know, I mean, back in the day, that must have been, you know, incredible to watch. It really must.
I think that's the thing. The iconic part of 50s rock and roll lead guitar is that double stop thing. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that kind of thing for me. It's like I hear that and go, that's 50s. That's from the 50s.
Yeah, definitely. And did you know that most rock and rollers from the 50s, in their bands, they had upright bass players? And I think Eddie Cochran was one of the few that had a standard electric bass player, used an old precision bass. And that's kind of how they got a lot of... It's quite a different sound as well. For example, Summertime Blues is... when they're playing it on the bass, it's quite a picky sound. You know, I can't do it on this, but you know, and that was a different sound again. So I should imagine it was a really sort of modern sound, you know, very modern 50s sound rather than the upright basses.
Definitely, and I think that iconic sound of the tremolo, the Bigsby as well on his Gretsch, that is such a, you know, what did that influence? What, you know, the Shadows probably after that, and then moving all the way forward.
Dwayne Eddy and the
Dwayne Eddy, yeah.
It's just great, isn't it?
It's such an iconic guitar sound, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And relating to the previous podcast, you know, Van Halen with the Floyd Rose. You know, that's just more of an extreme version of that. But obviously, it kind of started with those Bigsbys and yeah, it's such a great sound. I love it. I love that song.
God, it's great. It's great. Yeah. No, so Eddie Cochran is my big...
Eddie Cochran.
My big one there, yeah.
Certainly worthy of a nomination. So it probably comes as no surprise. My first nomination, can you guess who it is?
Let me think.
How about if I do this?
Marty McFly.
Well, actually, that's a really good point. That ties nicely into what I was going to say. Of course, it is the legend, Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
The godfather of rock and roll, and arguably the first like real guitar rock and roll hero. He had an edge and he had an energy that just, I don't think, was seen at all at the time. But my introduction to it did come from Back to the Future. When I was a kid, probably like 10 years old, watching Back to the Future, that iconic scene, Marty McFly at the school dance, 1955, with a Gibson ES345. And who knows the nerdy fact about that guitar?
Yeah, that guitar wasn't made yet.
Correct. Phil's winning nerd points today.
Oh, you want nerds? I can be a nerd. You carry on here.
Yeah, that scene.
He goes, what is it? He says, "Hey guys, this is in B flat. Try and keep up."
He says, "This is a blues jam in B. Watch me for the changes and try to keep up."
There we go. That's the one.
What a song!
But I think on Back to the Future they actually play it in A.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the original key, is it? But I'm sure. I mean, it's one of those things that you just hear in guitar circles all the time. That scene and those movies, the Back to the Future movies, are the reason many people actually picked up the guitar. Like you were saying, Phil, with Eddie Cochran. I think your influences can come from anywhere, and I was just I still am, massive fan of those films. And that scene, I think the thing was, it's still to this day for me one of the most convincing performances of a kind of music scene. I hate it when you get an actor that can't play an instrument and you can see, as a guitarist, you're looking at their fingers and you're looking at stuff and you can just see that they're not really into it. But Michael J. Fox
plays guitar.
He does play guitar, and I think he went on in an interview somewhere saying that he really wanted to bring the energy of his favorite guitar players. So he had like the Pete Townsend, you know, the windmill, and he had the Jimi Hendrix behind the head, like moving the guitar around. And it's just such a cool scene. I was like, I want to do that. And I think pretty much since my first gig, I've been playing Johnny B. Good. I don't think I've ever done like a covers gig where Johnny B. Good is not in the set.
I think I've played it more times than Chuck Berry, actually.
So it was written in, I believe it was written in 1955, and it was recorded in 1958. And so when you listen to it and you think how much we've got from it, the whole, you know, the status quo. Yeah. that is just, it's just got an energy. And I think that for me is the reason why I've nominated it. A, because it's one of the most instantly recognizable and iconic guitar riffs, that opening. But the whole thing, the energy of the song, for me, kind of represents the energy of rock and roll. And I think Chuck had that attitude to him. He came out of a scene that was maybe a little bit more kind of nicey and docile. Like, you look at Buddy Holly, definitely an icon and definitely a pioneer, but the way in which he was presented was a little bit more straight edge. Whereas Chuck came out and he had that kind of cheeky chappy, you're not quite sure what he's going to do, and the performance side of him with that energy and the way he would move around. I mean,
Yeah.
he, no doubt he has influenced all of those 70s heroes and 60s heroes that we love as well. Just the performance side of it.
And also, he must have been well up against it as well, because, I mean, predominantly rock and roll was white people. And, then you got this black guitar player, playing rock and roll. And he must have had all sorts of battles going on, to get where he was and do what he did.
Definitely.
It's the story, isn't it?
And
It was black artists writing these songs, but kind of white musicians like Elvis taking them and re-recording them and gaining popularity over songs that don't belong to them. I don't, regarding Elvis, I'm not sure if he actually wrote any songs, did he?
I don't know, actually. I'm
not
not
sure.
sure. I like Elvis, but I'm not a fan. I don't know.
No.
But I do have an interesting fact about Johnny B. Good, and more nerd points here, I think.
Go on.
But at the end, on the original recording, when he's singing "Go, Go, Johnny, Go," he goes. It's out of time. It's out of sync with the band.
Right.
And apparently, I don't know how true this is. Maybe people can, maybe write. But I've heard that they had one chance to record this song, and I don't know whether it was Chuck Berry or the band that cocked up at the end, and Chuck Berry was on the offbeat, and that's what you hear now. If you like, in a disco or anything like that, and you then to play it. Most people they don't know how to dance at that now. At the end of it,
disco?
In a disco, yeah. Well, I was born in 18. Yeah. So no, but what are they called? Are they not discos? What are they? Discotheque?
Nightclubs, but I don't think nightclubs are playing Johnny B. Good. If they are,
Are they
I want
not?
to know
Oh,
where
that
they are.
sounds like
I want to go. That sounds like my kind of nightclub.
That shows how last time I went to a nightclub then, or a discotheque. But yeah, it's really funny because you see people dancing. They don't know whether to dance to Chuck Berry's vocal or the back. It goes a little bit weird at the end. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think it's up there. I think it's ranked as like number 5 on the 100 greatest. I think it was Rolling Stone or something. 100 greatest songs of all time, and it's just something about it. He hit the nail on the head with the rhythm, the flow of it, the energy, the performance, the go in the choruses. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows. So
I love the bits, the call and response from the vocals to the guitar.
Yeah, man.
You got the is it in B? The song?
it's in B flat, I believe. Yeah.
B flat.
Those bits.
Yeah, so he's like, go, and then he's got the guitar bits that are responding. And that's a very blues-orientated thing, which, happened back in the day with the cotton plantation fields, and call and response was a big thing of blues. But obviously he's brought that to the masses, I suppose, in a more accessible...
Some of it's actually quite tricky to get the... There's little bits that he does that to get it just right, and even just that... You hear people play that wrong so many times.
It's the staccato, isn't it?
There's little bits in there. It was recorded on, I think it was an ES350. That's what he was using, his Gibson ES350. But I think there's some debate as to whether it was humbuckers or P90s on that song.
Well, he did play. He played a big Gibson Hollow as well. I'm not quite sure what it was.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the
model
350.
Is that the 350? Is
That's
that the one?
350. Yeah.
Right, the big blonde thing.
That's the one. But recorded in 1958, written in 1955, and it's slightly autobiographical as well. You can hear the story. Although, interesting facts, I did a bit of research and was just looking into this, and it was the idea of that grassroots musician, the blue-collar working musician rising to fame, and someday soon his name will be in light, saying Johnny Be Good tonight.
Mm.
And Johnny Be Good became a bit of a character in Chuck's songs, and actually there's references to a Mr. Good or Be Good or Lady Good in some of the other songs. But I don't know that it was 100% true, because if you look into Chuck's history, he didn't necessarily come from that working class background, although he was actually born on Good Avenue, spelt the same way, Goode, Good Avenue. But he actually had a degree, and he had a degree, this is, the internet has told me this, so I do hope it's right, but he had a degree in hairdressing. and like cosmetics. That was his thing.
Well, he always did have quite a slick hairdo, didn't he?
He did have a good barnet, didn't he?
That's part of his image, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah,
great
anyway,
song, great song.
I
Lee.
think just absolutely iconic. For me, the whole Back to the Future thing, I got so much influence from Back to the Future, and like I say, I've been gigging this song for years. I think the energy that Chuck brings to the stage, I think we all owe a debt to Chuck. If you're a rock and roll musician, you know. Oh, another nerdy fact as well, and I only found this out when I was looking into it. He did like to reuse some of his licks, and if you listen to the best of Chuck Berry, you tend to hear this. You hear that quite a few times, but actually, it is thought that maybe he got that from somewhere else. And there's a song by a chap called Louis Jordan, and it's called Ain't That Just Like a Woman? And I think that was from the mid-40s, and it's a piano song, kind of a boogie-woogie thing. If you check that out, have a listen to the opening riff, and I'll leave it up to you.
So it turns out Lee was born a year before me in 1916.
Anyway, there you go. That's my nomination, the legend, Chuck Berry.
Excellent, excellent.
You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
Over to Chris for the next one.
Well, actually, this ties in quite well to yours, Lee, because like yourself, I was a big fan of Back to the Future, and I don't even know why that didn't compute with me when I was thinking of songs from the 50s. Yeah, that was a big one for me, a big influence, and, you know, I wouldn't say it's the reason I picked up the guitar, but definitely, I rewatched those films at Christmas time especially, and
I've got the whole box set.
Me too, and I have the same feelings towards it every time. It's such a great movie, well put together. The soundtrack is incredible, and that scene with Johnny Be Good, it revisits again later on. It's in parts 1 and 2, and it's so clever.
It's so good.
Absolutely,
it is so good, and there's so many music and guitar references in those films as well, isn't there? You've got the 3, 4, 5 that he plays on stage. I love his little Ibanez. You know, when he's, we're the Pinheads, and who are they playing for? Oh, Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis is the judge of the school band, isn't he? And he's got that black Ibanez with the red strap. I had a red strap for years.
Isn't it? Ibanez Roadstar, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And then he's got a PRS as well in the future when it goes to the world where Biff is the leader. Biff is the Trump, if you. I think that's who they were going for with that.
Biff is the Trump.
I think they actually were. I think that's the fact that they were the Biff character in that part was influenced from Donald Trump. The big tower with Biff towers and everything. Anyway, yeah, he's got a blue PRS, what looks like a C24 because it's got the maple neck. And he's hurt his hand, hasn't he? So he can't really play guitar very well. And he sort of picks it up, and they can hear through the door him playing, and it's kind of like that's PRS. Anyway, you were saying, Phil.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually went to the cinema to watch Back to the Future Part 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was in.
How old were you then, Phil?
Odeons.
You like 45 when that came out?
I was about 63, I think, when that film came out. No, I was 10. It was 1985 when it came out, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
So, yeah, that made me 10, yeah.
Well, actually, I've been to the cinema to see it as well, because about 10 years ago, they reissued it.
They did. I went and saw it.
It was so good. It was so
amazing.
Good.
Amazing.
Like, yeah, me and my wife Amy are massive fans of the 80s music and films, and we went, but she came after a shift at work and fell asleep for the whole thing. I was like, this is the one time opportunity to see this film at the cinema, in our lifetime. Having a connection to the 50s artists through movies is kind of be my next song.
Okay.
In that vein. So this song actually, probably a little different, probably a little unexpected, is Brenda Lee's "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree." Now, as a kid, I loved Home Alone. especially the first one. And you got the scene where he's at home, the parents are away, and he's got all these cardboard cutouts moving around the room, and there's that song "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree" playing, and I love the guitar part at the beginning. Like as a kid, I was like, God, that was so iconic for me. I absolutely loved it, and I'm not sure if I could play it. I've gigged this song a few times, especially doing a lot of functions. You do a lot of Christmas gigs, and let's see. That's not right. I'm gonna start this one again. Lee, you can cut that.
Yeah, I can cut that. Yeah.
There we go. No, let's start that one again. Here we go.
Okay. I'm using all this. To be fair, watching you play that, there's some tricky little bits in there. I love the sound on that record. It's that real jazzy guitar.
Yeah, well, the guitar player is a guy called Hank Garland. Now, back in the day, he was actually a country jazz blues guitarist, and he was actually part of like the Nashville A team. He was like the sideman to guys like Bobby Helms, who released the song Jingle Bell Rock in '57. He was also a sideman to the Everly Brothers and Elvis Presley too. So he was, a huge guitarist at the time. Like,
wow.
So yeah, a bit of history.
Did he play on Jingle Bell Rock?
Yes, he did the guitar part at the beginning.
Now you say it, you can actually hear there's such a
can
similarity.
hear it.
You could almost put that little lick at the beginning in Jingle Bell Rock.
Exactly.
Jingle Bell.
But it's amazing the jump you have to do, like the chords. I'm not even sure if he doesn't play these chords here. I'm just trying to give a reference, but he basically just drops sing on here. Yeah, but live when I'm in a trio sense, in a function band, I got to play. Got to jump from up and down. It's a bit of a gymnastic effort, that is. So
yeah, I'm feeling Christmassy already.
I know. That's why I got my beverage today with like a maple syrup. I think it's in that today.
Oh, nice! I just put brandy in mine. That always gets me in the mood.
Yeah, I can't do Tia Maria anymore from being at Phil's. So just severe indigestion for me.
And I've had 4 mince pies for breakfast.
Do you know, you're actually getting me in the Christmas spirit now. It's getting lots of people are getting the Christmas trimmings out. I think I might get my balls out this afternoon.
Take a picture for Instagram, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my song anyway, from 1958. That record, and it was the B-side of an album. I don't know the name of the album. I should look that up. But I know it was on a B-side, released in '58. So the guitarist is Hank Garland, so any of those who want to go and check him out. Yeah, very well-respected guitar player, and played a big semi-hollow, a bit like the one you've got there, Phil. I think his was a Gibson. Yeah, big semi-hollow thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
That's a really good nomination, actually, because I love that song, and it's so ingrained in us, isn't it? You can't avoid those Christmas songs, but I just didn't even think about that at all. That's really cool.
No, well, I thought as we're getting closer to Christmas as well. But yeah, I'm not sure in terms of pushing boundaries with the guitar, inspiring anyone. I'm not sure if he really did much. But the stuff he's playing up here, the high register of the guitar neck is, it's not easy to do. It's very intricate. Frets are quite small. So in itself, at that time, I suppose it's quite.
I think it's worthy of a nomination. I think any piece of guitar playing that stands the test of time like that has, and is still being played every year, that's enough. That's enough.
And
for
he
me.
wrote that.
Absolutely.
For me, he's the originator of it. So yeah, there's me. So on to Mr. Walker.
Okay, I've got a bit of a curveball here, boys.
Oh, here we go.
Curveball for you.
Wait, let me just have a sip of my coffee. 1 minute.
Okay. Is that better? Excellent. Okay, so my curveball is Brian Setzer.
Okay.
So not from the 50s, obviously, but this guy basically lives in the 50s, and he's taken sort of 50s music and made, I would say, made it modern, but he's brought it more today, I would say. A big Brian Setzer fan, and Brian Setzer is a big Eddie Cochran fan. And I think the film was La Bamba, about the Richie Valens story. And I think they used to do like the bandstand, where they used to go on tour, and there'd be, say, Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, Big Bopper, and they'd all go around and tour together, in one big bus and what have you. And and Brian Setzer actually plays Eddie Cochran in this film, and obviously such an influence on Brian Setzer because of the big orange Gretsch and what have you. And I just think, I think Brian Setzer probably would have preferred to have been born in the 50s. And a lot of Brian's playing is 50s, but slightly more modern. He's got the Bassman amp, and he's got a Roland Space Echo, the RE301, and he uses the preamp in that to get the distortion type sound on his guitar. If you ever watch, if you look closely, if you see Brian Setzer live, the needle on the Echo unit is always in the red, and the peak light's always flashing. But yeah, like I said, a bit of a curveball, not entirely 50s, but he did. He's done loads of different things. One that I love, it's hard to pick, but this is again using the Echo unit, bringing the 50s a little bit more modern, if you like, more to date. But he did a song called Sleepwalk, or he covered a song first done by Santo and Johnny. But the way that he plays it, I'll try to do a little bit of that now. So it's still got that real 50s sound, but the way he sort of uses the Echo unit and what have you. So, yeah, like I say, curveball, but I think Brian Setzer
I love it. I love it. I think that's really cool. I have to say as well, because we did that gig, didn't we? The one we were speaking about a couple of weeks ago. We managed to get a cheeky little gig in while we were allowed to, and we played that song. And I wasn't familiar. I sort of know that song. You've heard it. You've heard those chords. But I had to look into it, and we did the Setzer version. And actually, when I went away and listened to the Setzer version, it was weird because I obviously spend a lot of time with you and know your guitar playing, but I wasn't that familiar with Brian Setzer. But when I listened to Brian Setzer, it was almost, I could hear so much of you, if you know what I mean, which kind of, it showed me that obviously he has been a massive influence on you. I think that must happen a lot. If you listen to a guitar player and you don't necessarily know what their influences are, you get a mixture of it all and you hear their sound. But then when you go back and listen to their influences, you go, I see. And so when I was getting ready for that gig and listening to that Sleepwalk song, I was going, I can hear that, and I can hear little bits that I've heard you do that I know where you've got them from now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm a massive Brian Setzer fan, massive Eddie Cochran fan, and yeah, it does come out in you playing it, and that does that not say what a guitar? We used to do Brian Setzer in the show, right? I think the first year that the show went out, and then we changed it. Do other guitar heroes, but it does prove what a guitar hero Brian Setzer is, because he.
And also ties nicely into the Christmas thing, because I love Brian Setzer's. That's where I've heard him, really. Yes. I've heard him do the Brian Setzer Orchestra, the Christmas specials. Yeah, it's such a cool Christmassy sound.
Yeah, I mean, in different bands and that I've been in now, we've done a couple of Brian Setzer songs. We've done Jingle Bells. Yeah, the way that he does it. I mean, we did it as a 3-piece, so it's really, trying to do all the brass stabs on a guitar at the same time, and have you? But it was, It's, I mean, in fact, I've just ordered the DVD because I used to have it, and I think I've lent it to somebody, and I can't remember who I've lent it to. So I've just ordered the Christmas DVD again.
Oh wow! Oh cool! Yeah. I need to get
that. When we're allowed to, we'll have to have a. We'll have to watch it all together and have some sherry and mince pies.
Sounds lovely.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
Okay, so actually that opens into my last one quite nicely, because I have to confess I had two that I could not choose between, and the fact that you've gone for a guy who technically is not in the 50s, I think it allows me to go with these two, and maybe I'll let you guys choose who you think is a more worthwhile nomination. So if I just play you the two riffs, and I think it'll be pretty recognisable who they are. Let me, I need a bit of echo, a little bit of slapback. So, first one would be this. Of course, this. There we go. First nomination.
My name's Johnny Cash.
Second nomination. There we go. Who knows that one?
I think that's the most famous piece of music that nobody knows what it is. Everybody's
Right,
heard that, and nobody knows
I've
who
heard
did
it.
it or what it is.
I
All right,
confess
maybe
I'm
I'll-
one of those guys.
You've heard it though, Chris. Yeah, you know what it is. You've
Yeah,
heard
of
it?
course I do. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll open up by talking about that. That is, of course, Rumble by
Yes,
Link
of course it
Ray. So that was released in March of 1958. And the reason that it is my nomination, or one of my nominations, is because it's regarded as one of the first records that really made use of things like distortion, and he used power chords, and the whole kind of ethos behind it. Rumble was a term for a street fight, and you know, still to this day, it is the only instrumental song that was banned from American radio for fear of what it would do to the listeners. So when you're talking in terms of the birth of rock and roll, I know that have you seen the film It Might Get Loud
Yes,
with Jimmy Page and
I have it on
Jack
DVD.
White? You've not
yeah.
seen it, Chris?
No, I haven't seen that, mate.
Oh man, you need to see that. It's basically a conversation a bit like this, but three legends. You've got Jimmy Page, Jack White, and The Edge, and they're just sat around with their guitars having a conversation, but it goes back to their households and studios, and they give a bit of a tour, talk about their influences. And one thing that they all come together on is Link Ray's Rumble. And I think it's the energy. It was, like I say, it's that sound. As the song progresses, it's only like 2 minutes long, but it starts like relatively clean. It starts kind of like that, and it's just got that real plodding drum. But as it starts to build, halfway through, he turns on the tremolo, and you sort of hear him manipulating the tremolo. It gets faster and more intense, and it really starts digging in. And so you get that overdriven guitar. He's playing sort of simplified power chords, and then coupled with the media response to it and the way it was received. There was stories that they kind of pieced it together. The band pieced it together, which was Link Ray and his Ray Men, believe it or not. They put it together. I think it was like in a sound check or something, and on the night it was requested 4 or 5 times over, and the audience just absolutely loved it because, again, a bit like with Chuck Berry, it was coming out in a time that was a little bit more clean cut, a little bit more conservative, and just kind of straight edge. And all of a sudden you had this guy making this horrendous sound. I think there's a story as well that I read last night when I was doing some research. When he played it to a record producer and was trying to get the go-ahead to get it recorded, they were listening to like a live version or something of it that they just pieced together at a rehearsal or a gig, and he actually stabbed holes in the record player speakers because he says it wasn't gritty enough. So you can imagine it like he's there with some sort of executive, and he's going, no, it's not sounding rough enough. You're not getting the full picture of how it sounds live. And he actually punctured holes in the speaker to get it to sound more torn and rough. So I just think there's no vocals. It's literally that. It's essentially a 12-bar kind of format in the key of E, just plays round, gets gradually more intense, but the whole attitude of it doesn't get more rock and roll. than that.
That's really good. I mean, that is kind of a little bit of a curveball, to be honest, because no one was expecting
It is.
that.
Well, there you
and
go.
You can hear Jimi Hendrix, can't you, in that?
Yeah.
You know, especially with the minor, all the minor pentatonic. You can hear Jimi Hendrix there, can't you? And yes, mate. Yeah, that's a great one, Lee. Love it.
I think the fact that it was an instrumental as well, there's no vocals. It said, I'm a guitar player. Here is some electric guitar. And it's not nice, clean electric guitar. It's rough, gritty, in-your-face electric guitar, front and center. And obviously that is just an ethos that rock music in general grabbed and ran with. And so it was certainly worthy of a nomination. And my other one, I have to just touch on it, Johnny Cash. For me, arguably the most iconic, in my experience, the most iconic 50s. He's a good example of someone who thankfully didn't die young. And so we did have generations of music. And he was, find me a man that's cooler than Johnny Cash. Seriously. I mean, he just seemed to get better with age, that voice. But let's not forget that those early recordings were iconic. You had, what's the chap's name? Luther Perkins. That was the guitar player that played those. If you've ever seen any black and white footage of Johnny Cash, and Luther Perkins is this really tall kind of beanpole of a man with this piercing, staring eyes, and he's playing a Fender Esquire. Again, it's the attitude in which this music is presented, I think, that for me is the influence for rock and roll.
There's one of my favourite songs by Johnny Cash is called "One Piece at a Time," and
Right.
And it's basically he works at a car plant. There's this guy, and I mean Johnny Cash has great stories. A Boy Named Sue, that's another great song. But yeah, it's about how he takes this car, and a piece at a time. So one day he'll take a wing, and then he'll take a steering wheel, and he goes, well, it's a 49, 59, 50, and he's going on and on about what model the car is, and how the models changed over the years, and he's driving this thing that looks. Listen to it. Anybody out there who's listening to this podcast, go listen to that song. It's brilliant. But then you mentioned the guitar player, and he's. As well, apparently there's an interesting story about that where he had somebody who was, like you'd think, country type playing, and he goes, "I don't want no picker." I don't want no picker.
well, Luther Perkins is another example of someone who tragically died young. He fell asleep with a cigarette in his hand and died of smoke inhalation because his flat caught on fire.
Oh no!
Yeah. But he was with Johnny from the start, and so iconic. I mean, he's playing a Fender Esquire, so literally like the earliest example of electric guitar, one pickup. And he's credited with invented the boom chicka.
Yeah.
Essentially, Johnny's sound. I mean, that is so iconic. And of course, they didn't have a drummer when they started as well, so Johnny would famously put like a dollar bill or a piece of paper between the strings on his acoustic to get the snare drum.
Yeah.
But
then you got the upright bass doing the percussion.
You got the upright bass. They're the original rock and roll trio. I just think, again, it's that attitude. Rock and roll is all about an attitude, and it's about how you approach the music. And just like Chuck Berry, Johnny Cash clearly didn't want to conform. But it's interesting when you look at his like early albums. I think his first album was Johnny Cash and his Hot and Blue Guitar or something. He was clean cut, but clearly he wanted to break away from that, and clearly he had his own ideas.
Yeah.
And then, as we moved into the 60s, famously did the Folsom Prison gigs, and it just doesn't get more iconic than "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." So there we go.
My name's Sue. How do you do? Well, do you know what? I think that was a really good all-round good first episode of our Desert Island Riffs, if you like.
I'm actually
really
surprised. I'm surprised we didn't double up on anything either.
Well,
No?
yeah. Well, doesn't it go to show that how many great, superstars there were back then? Guitar players and singers and songwriters, and
well, that's one thing I was going to mention was about singers. Actually, I noticed we haven't done a Chris's Corner yet. Is it okay? We can miss out Chris's Corner this time, can't we?
Well, yeah. Because I was gonna. There's no Phil's rant either, so let's make these
No.
specials so we do away
absolutely.
with those. I think.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
when I think of the 50s, as well as obviously all the guitar players we've mentioned, who also sing like Johnny Cash as well,
Mm.
I'm a huge fan of guys like Little Richard. You know, just the real ballsy vocals and just so much energy.
He would
and
have definitely been in there for me, but I just wanted to keep it guitar based because obviously he's a piano player. But you're
at
right,
the same
Little
time,
Richard.
I think when you're in a band with a singer who's really giving it everything, it surely reflects how the guitar player is going to approach the performance as well. You got Little Richard really going for it. So as a guitar player, you're really going to be like really digging in as well because the energy is really high. The drummers, really affected by the vocals performance, singer's performance.
Oh man, yeah, definitely that. What a tune!
Yeah,
What a
Lucille
tune.
and
I grew up with I don't know if you guys know this film. There's a kids' cartoon film called The Little Toaster or The Brave Little Toaster. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you seen it? And there's
got it on
this
DVD.
No.
I got it
well,
on
there you
DVD.
go. You'll know exactly what I'm on about. There's a 50s radio. One of the characters is a little radio, isn't it? It's all like household appliances that go on this mission, and there's a radio, and he just blasts out Little Richard. And I was probably listening to that when I was like 6, 7, and I always remember that that song. And I had no idea what it was and didn't until years later. But what an impact that made. So let's throw a special mention, even though he's not a guitar player, to Little Richard.
No, but I think, definitely he had the energy of a guitar player, didn't he? I think so.
He had the energy of rock and roll, and that's what it's all
Yeah.
about. You look at everyone we've mentioned today, and they had an integrity, and they had just a passion and an energy that is rock and roll. That's what it's all about.
It is. It is, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, that's really good. That, and I think really good note to leave it on. Rock and roll is here to stay.
It's alive and thriving in
Exactly.
a world lockdown.
In a world lockdown. Oh no, so much energy, and I'm going to go listen to some 50s LPs now.
Definitely, let's do it. All right, so we'll save Phil's rant. You can do a double rant next time, maybe.
Oh no, this one will probably make up for a double one. Don't you worry about that. I've got a big problem about something. Oh, it's a big problem.
There's a teaser. Tune in next week, folks, to find out what Phil's got a big problem with.
To find out Phil's big problem.
All right, let's wrap up then. Let's, as usual, let's do some quick plugs. So if you want to get in touch, send us any comments, messages. Let us know who your 50s icons are. Then send them in on Instagram. You can look at Phil Walker Guitar, Lee Troy Guitar, and Chris Anthony Guitar. On Facebook, you can find us. It's Phil Walker Guitarist, Lee Williams Guitarist, and Chris Anthony Guitar. And you can look, the thing that unites us all, the guitar show that we can't wait to get back out and do, Story of Guitar Heroes on Instagram, Facebook. You got the website, it's www.storyofguitarheroes.com. And of course, you've got the YouTube as well. Look for Phil Walker Guitarist.
Very good.
There we go, chaps. Another one in the bag.
Splendid.
I really enjoyed that one, guys.
Yeah, I did.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process of looking into this stuff. Isn't it just fun to just like get into music and just last night I was up till, I don't know, it was gone midnight, and I was just wading through black and white videos of Johnny Cash and Chuck Berry, Little Richard. It was just, I love going down these rabbit holes. So thank you all for listening, and we hope you've enjoyed this.
Absolutely. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Phil has left the building.